I'm James Rule. Welcome to the Lonely Leader podcast, where we help existing and aspiring leaders find clarity, build resilience, drive performance, and enhance fulfillment. Leading with agility. I think this is essential for the modern day leader. The ability to pivot, adapt, and move forward and through whatever challenges come our way. The world is moving at a frenetic pace. Innovation, technological advancements, changes in the way we work, hybrid working, remote working. There are so many things that are pulling at the fabric of what has been the traditional way of working. And I think leaders, in my experience, are finding that challenging. What is the right way to move forward and through those challenges? And so I want to encourage you through today's episode to be agile and to retain that agility. Now, I just want to clarify, being agile doesn't mean being haphazard, being frenetic, flipping from one idea to the next, then reversing your thinking, changing course, and then doing it all again. It's far more strategic than that. You've still got to be rooted in your core set of values. You've still got to retain your identity, your purpose, but it's having that ability and that flexibility and that willingness to be able to change course and adapt, but you still have your leadership principles as the North Star that will keep guiding you and helping you to move forward. The first tip I want to share is anticipate the need for change and don't become too attached to a singular plan. So let me expand on that a little bit. I talk a lot with clients about not fearing adversity, rather to look for the opportunity within the challenge, within the period of stress. And invariably, when we look back over our own professional careers or personal lives, there are stressful moments, peaks of stress that arguably we wish we didn't go through. But then when the dust settles and we step back from that, we can find that the closing of that door led us to another door, led us to another opportunity. That may be a new relationship, it may be a new strategy, or indeed a completely new role, new career. But we needed that moment of adversity in order to find the new opportunity. And I think that links into this notion of agility. If we step into a challenge and we're very rigid and we refuse to consider any other plan but the plan we've put in place, then we're making our life very difficult. And the analogy I would use here is if you're sailing into a storm and you refuse to do anything but maintain the current course, well, then you're fighting Mother Nature. You may lose your sail, you may become demasted. I'm no sailing expert, but the terminology resonates for this example. So what do you do in the storm? Well, you change tack, you adjust your sails. You may have to change course slightly in order to reach the harbor or the port that you were sailing for. You don't just blindly plow on and try and fight your way through the storm. And that metaphor really helps me when I'm thinking of the need for agility. It's not that you are stubbornly sticking to a plan, but you sense that storm brewing, you sense that perhaps the strategy, the course isn't the correct one, and you are open-minded enough to be able to say, okay, we need to change, we need to pivot, we need to move, we need to tweak something. And that takes me very much into my second tip. Do not fear showing vulnerability and retain confidence in your ability. So let's unpick that. A lot of leaders, even senior experienced leaders, still wrestle with this. I'm the boss. I'm in charge. I'm meant to have all the answers. I'm meant to be foolproof. I can't make a mistake. It's such a frustrating and deluded notion. Who do we know in any sort of walk of life, in any professional role or personal role, that has just progressed ever upwards without making a single bad call? It doesn't happen. But we sort of tune that frame of reference out, and we're far harder on ourselves when we consider our roles, our decision making. And so when we sense and anticipate that need for change, there's this little inner conflict between two voices. The voice that says, hey, we need to change. The other voice is saying, oh, don't show vulnerability. Don't show any weakness. Don't admit you've got something wrong. And that can be catastrophic because then you plow on, going back to that sailing analogy, refusing to tact or adjust sails or change course, hoping that that one strategy will magically move you through the period of adversity or challenge. It's far better to have that vulnerability, to show that sense of humility, if you will, to be able to put your hand up as the leader and say, I don't think this is right. I think I've perhaps misjudged this situation. Perhaps we're almost right with what we're doing, and with a bit of a tweak, we can reset and move forward. But whichever way you want to position it, you're simply saying we need to change, and that is totally natural. I work in sport. I worked in sport for many years, and I always use the analogy of a game plan. You can build a game plan, but it's live. So it might look good on paper, but what you can't 100% predict is how human beings on the opposition team are going to react. And you can sort of develop a theory on what you think is going to happen. They're going to move this way or that way. But when the match starts, you have to retain that flexibility, that agility to say, oh, they're not quite moving as we expected. Let's do something different. And the leaders need to be comfortable saying, yep, this isn't working. And that brings me on to my second point. So yes, being comfortable to say we need to make a change, to anticipate that need, to be comfortable to show some vulnerability, some humility and say, I've maybe not got this quite right. But then it sounds like I'm contradicting myself. It's very important then to retain confidence in your own ability and that of your team to course correct. Just because you've identified a need for change, just because you've identified that something's not quite working in practice as we anticipate in theory, that does not mean that you are out of your depth, that you are no longer a quality leader. What it means is you need to fall back on the confidence you have in your ability from all the previous good decisions you've made, from the gut intuition and the practical skills that you have honed in your career to date, and trust it to make the right call, to make those decisions, to reset and put us on a different direction. And going back to the sporting analogy, they're your on-field leaders, your on-court leaders that say, the defence are behaving in a way that we haven't anticipated. We need to change. We need to develop the plan and we need to go again. And people respond and follow that. So it is really important when we're talking about agility that one roadblock, one challenge doesn't destroy your confidence. You don't start to display panic or procrastination, that you go, we need to change, and confidently make the call to change. Because remember, and it sounds so simplistic, if you make an incorrect call or you try to course correct and it's still not quite right in terms of the solution, then guess what? We have the ability to make the next decision, to make the next call. And we keep course correcting until we are out of the proverbial storm, until we are through that period of adversity. Nobody said as a leader, you get one decision. That's it. Make everything work with this one decision and then sit on your hands. Of course, you can keep making decisions, responding to the intelligence, responding to the market forces in front of you, saying, okay, next decision is X. What's happening now? Let's assess that. Next decision is Y, and so on until you are through and out of the challenge. My third tip is building agility into your team culture. Now, you can be an agile leader. You can do all of the things we've talked about, anticipate the need for change, be willing to show vulnerability, have the confidence in your own ability and that of your team. But if you're operating in isolation, you're not going to get the traction that you need from your people. That's going to build a level of frustration and irritation that is going to harm your ability to perform optimally. So within this theme, I want to share 2 or 3 simple steps you can take to ensure that agility is embedded not just in you as the leader, but in your people and your wider team culture. You've got to empower decision making. Now, I've talked in previous episodes about giving people autonomy, not micromanaging, the impact that has on people's sense of value. And those themes resonate really keenly with this development of an agile team culture. If you need an ability to pivot, to move quickly, The last thing you need is a slow, treacle light process where people spot opportunities and situations where they can tweak strategy, course correct, respond to market forces, and they don't move because they've got to pass it up the chain of command, wait for sign off. That comes back down. And by the time they move, the opportunity has passed them by. So if you need agility, you have to first ensure that you've trained your people with a sufficient skill set and knowledge base that you have the faith and trust in them to make quick decisions. Now, as I talked about in length around delegation and micromanagement previously, there will be some mistakes. That's okay. You can learn from them, assess from them. It's part of the skill development and the expansion of the knowledge base. But if your fear of mistakes being made overrides this, then basically you have zero chance of building an agile team culture because you'll be locked in a slow moving, micromanaging, lack of autonomy situation where in reality, people are waiting for you to make every single judgment call. And this leads me into the second point, that continuous learning trumps perfection. If staff are operating from a place of fear that if they make any mistakes, then you're never going to get that agility that you need. They need to feel empowered, as we said in the earlier point, to have the autonomy to make decisions. That's step one. They need to feel that they're not being micromanaged, as we said in the previous point. But tied into that, you need to demonstrate through your words and actions as a leader that you are open to them making mistakes. If you come down and hammer them with criticism, humiliation in front of their peers, disciplinaries, all of the above, when mistakes are made, then guess what? People just retract into that safe space. Let's not take any risks. We sense a need to pivot, to change direction, but let's wait for our boss to sign it off. Until she tells us it's the right thing to do, we'll just sit on our hands once again. That's not an agile team culture. If you look at it the other way, we recognize that you've got autonomy. We recognize that you'll make mistakes. The key thing is that we identify the mistakes quickly. We learn from the mistakes. We embed the learnings and share them with everybody that's involved so that other people can avoid making the same mistakes. And crucially, the individual avoids making the same mistakes. We have to be open to mistakes, but I'm not saying you have to be open to the same mistakes being made repeatedly. There's a key difference there. And this brings me into my last sub-point, if you will, under the agile team culture. And that is communication is critical. It's a theme that's permeated a lot of my recent episodes, but people have to stay connected. Communication is always important. It's a foundation on which high performance is built. But when you are trying to navigate through that storm, using my earlier analogy, close communication, little and often, everybody feeling very connected, everybody feeling like they've got a real sense of where we are, where we're trying to get to, means that people feel far more resilient. They know that they're part of something bigger than just themselves. They feel emboldened by that. They know that everybody's looking out for each other. Equally, it's not just about team communication, it's communication up and down from you as the leader, that they've got comfort, that the leader's on board, that the leader's connected and present. I'm not talking about micromanagement. I'm not contradicting to my earlier point, but people need to see that calm, composed leader in and around the ecosystem when there is frequent change happening, reinforcing the confidence that they feel in the team, reinforcing that so that it emboldens people, enhances individual and team confidence to keep moving forward. Letting people see the pride, the congratulations when people have made a great call, and equally letting people see how you support the individual that's stumbled, that's maybe made a mistake, that's strived to be agile, but perhaps not made the right call. How do you put the arm around them, help them learn from it, and move forward from that negative experience? So moving away from agility in the team culture, I want to finish this episode by bringing it back to you. And my final tip is to truly embrace agility as part of your leadership journey. Everything starts ultimately with your mindset. When you believe in something, it's far easier then to help that develop and embed within your people and the wider organization. But you've got to be able to step forward and say, agility is not something that's risky. It's not perceived as me flipping and flopping, as I said earlier, and not having a clear sense of direction. Quite the contrary. Agility is showing me as the rounded leader, as somebody that's comfortable showing a bit of vulnerability. It's comfortable saying, hey, I've made an error of judgment, or I've not got this strategy quite right. Somebody who then can follow that up with confidence. And I encourage you to step back and think, where do I need to be agile in my leadership ecosystem at the minute? So I talked earlier about not sticking to one tried and tested strategy, the sailor sailing into the storm and refusing to alter course or to change the sail and adjust things. Where do you need to bring that to bear? Is there a strategy that you are pushing forward because it's always worked in the past, because you believe in it and you fear making that change? But actually, as you listen to this, there is a need to adapt or develop that. Do you need some agility in how you appraise your staff? Are you locked in an antiquated appraisal system, 6-monthly annual appraisals, which you might have heard me in previous episodes talking about why I believe that is doomed to failure? Do you need to be more agile in how you connect, interact, appraise performance, hold people accountable, and do it in a much more fluid style than the old-fashioned 6 or 12-month model? Do you need some agility in terms of how the working environment is structured? Have you always been a very much present 9 till 5 at your desk, office-based organization? Do you need some agility to embrace some element of remote working so that it allows you to tap into and recruit and access talent that isn't available in your immediate geography, but is available globally if you're willing to have some agility in your thinking in how you structure a hybrid working environment that combines remote and office-based working? There are a million ways when you actually start to take some time to reflect on where you can be agile. And step one is being open to it. The world is changing. Your market will be changing. Your internal organization is changing. The people that you lead are changing, evolving, developing. Just because somebody's been with you for a number of years doesn't mean they're the same person. The impact of the evolution in their personal life, they may have got married, they may have children, their dynamics shift. Everything around us is changing. And so if change is the constant, agility is the natural consequence of that. The leader that is able to bring agility to every facet of their leadership style is far more adept and better placed to be successful than the leader hanging on to tried and tested ways of operating. Thanks for listening to the Lonely Leader podcast. I'd be very grateful if you could share and follow if the content resonates. And if you're looking for additional free resource to support your continued growth and development, then please do check out our social media and website details in the show notes. Remember, quality leadership on the outside must always start within.